Hey! In this video, we are going to build a voice using subtractive synthesis. The basic idea behind subtractive synthesis is to start with a harmonically rich waveform and then shape it with filtering. To start, let's create our waveform. In addition to using something like a square wave, we could also mix multiple signals together to create our complex waveform and give us a lot of different content to filter. Here I'm using multiple different sources from the VCV free collection, and in that we also have the VCA mix, which combines a 4-to-1 mixer and voltage controlled amplifiers. If we start with a square wave from the VCO, we can then blend that with these wavetable VCOs and maybe this noise source. Now that we have everything patched to the mixer, let's hear what all of our signals are. With your mixer, you can blend any of these signals in any combination that you want. So I'm just going to find something that I find somewhat pleasing. With the VCA mix, we can set up our blend, or our relationship between all of our different mix signals up here, and then we do have a main mix-out level that can be controlled by other signals as well. By default, we have all of our oscillators tuned exactly the same. One way to create some interest in our waveform before filtering might be to detune some of these. Additionally, we might use an octave shifter with our MIDI to CV device to set one of the oscillators to a lower octave than everything else. We'll do this with the triangle wave. Now that we have a waveform with a lot of harmonic content, we need to route it into our filter and then our VCA. In this sequence, we have the voltage controlled filter and our voltage controlled amplifier right here. You can play around with which one comes first, but we typically want to be able to both control the level of the signal going into our filter, which we can do with the VCA mix, or the input drive on the filter itself. And you'll want to be able to control the total amplitude of your sound after it's filtering, which is where the second VCA comes in. Now that we have these routed, we're going to look at the filter and what it's doing to our signal as part of this voice. On the voltage controlled filter, or VCF, we have a main cutoff frequency, a resonance knob, and a drive. All of these have a control voltage input and a corresponding attenuverter. Like many voltage controlled filters, this one has a low pass filter mode and a high pass filter mode. We are currently using the low-pass filter mode to remove content above our cutoff frequency. So if we listen back to our waveform and lower the cutoff on this dial, we can hear the waveform change as we remove those extra harmonics. You may have noticed that we lost a lot of upper frequency content from our initial sound right away, even with the cutoff all the way up. That is because this voltage controlled filter has its highest point set to 8,000 Hz or 8 kilohertz. Additionally, if you heard an accentuated frequency around wherever the cutoff was currently set, that is because of this resonance knob being partially up. Both the low and high pass filter modes of this VCF are a 24 decibel per octave or 4-pole curve. This means from the cutoff point, whatever our current frequency is set to, everything above that point is getting lowered by a curve that equals out to a total 24 decibel reduction at an octave above that current frequency. The input drive is going to change the amount of gain being applied to our signal on the input of the VCF, allowing us to lower or raise our signal to get the filter to respond to it in the way that we want. This can be used to completely attenuate the signal or overdrive it and create some extra distortion. A bit of drive sounds pretty good. Where the cutoff dictates what we're removing from our signal, the resonance uses that same point and boosts frequency content around it until it gets to a point of self-oscillation or feedback. Just like with our basic voice, we're going to want to use our envelope generator to open and close our main VCA, but we can also use one with our filter. And then we can change the overall timbral qualities of our sound as we play the note, or over the duration of each note we play. So let's first set up one for our VCA, and we'll hook up the secondary one for our filter. Now that we have our envelopes routed, We can hear the amplitude change as we press a note, but currently the attenuverter for our cutoff frequency that we hooked the second envelope into is set to 0%, so we're not getting any modulation from that. By default, if I just play with my VCA being modified and no filter modification, it still sounds full and rich, but a little flat, or a little plain. However, if we add some modulation from our envelope, either the one we're using and split it directly there, or using a second envelope, we can create filter movement in addition to our amplitude changes. Then, if we were interested in applying a low-frequency oscillator to our filter instead of an envelope generator, that would work in very much the same way. We'll use a sine wave. And while this video is not on modulation specifically, an interesting thing you might try is mixing an LFO with your envelope generator before sending it to your filter. We can do that with the VCV CV mix. If you want your filter movement to track with the note that you're playing, you could also take the volt per octave signal from your MIDI to CV device and send that into the cutoff frequency at 100% or another percent for it to scale differently. And just like with our LFO and envelope generators, we could mix all of these things together to create very complex modulation of our filter. Something to explore if you wanted to use multiple filters is combining via routing a low-pass filter and a high-pass filter at different cutoffs can create a bandpass filter. I've added this second filter down here where there was space, and we're going to route from the low-pass filter into this one and then out of the high-pass filter and back to our VCA. If you keep the high-pass filter well below the cutoff frequency of the low-pass filter, you'll create a nice band area where you're cutting out some high and some low content, which will potentially give you extra room around your synth if you're mixing it with other instruments. You may also use the same modulation on both to get the different pass filters to track together. And just like our basic voice, using Polyphony with our MIDI to CV device can create really nice chords out of a subtractive voice. So that is some of the core ways to make a subtractive synthesizer voice in VCV Rack, where you mix several sound sources together and then filter them and modulate that filter to create interesting sounds as you perform it. Consider trying other oscillators or other noise sources in your mix. Try modulating the levels in that mixture, try different filters. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can use the main idea behind subtractive synthesis to create really interesting sounds. And if you spend time making a subtractive synthesizer voice, please share it with me. Until then, I hope you find time to bleep and bloop.